The thing about elections is they're often hijacked by issues and events. The government wants voters to decide who they trust to keep the economy strong and the country safe. And Labor wants it to be a referendum on Scott Morrison, but elections never go entirely to anyone's plan. Often it's not just the major parties' core messages, but how they handle all the other things that come up that can swing the result. A week or so back, the Prime Minister's hand-picked Katherine Deves as Liberal candidate in Tony Abbott's old seat of Warringah. Now, there's no doubt she was a captain's pick because of many things, not just her stance on women's sport. I suspect it had a lot to do with the fact that she's a youngish woman, juggling work and family, married to a tradie, and she stood the best chance of winning the seat back. But it's her stance on women's sport that's now front and centre, and once more giving this seat national attention. Deves has used some over-the-top language in the past for which she regrets, and she's now apologised. And she's not the first candidate in this election to have to recant something on social media. But on the substantive issue of her views about a fair go for women and girls in sport, she's not backing down. And for that, there's more who support her than attack her. Because what she argues is something that until a couple of years ago, almost every Australian would willingly have supported. You see, Deves, who's the mother of 3 young girls, thinks it's wrong that women and girls should face unfair competition from biological males. Like all the women pushed down a place by Leah Thomas, a biological male, albeit now taking testosterone suppression treatment, but with the full benefits of testosterone during puberty. Thomas was ranked about 500th in the pool against men, but then she just blitzed gold against biological women in the college swimming titles in the United States. It's common sense, is it not, to want sport to have a level playing field. After all, that's why we drug test athletes and every sport has a rule book, so as not to allow some competitors an unfair advantage. But what's common sense to most people in these topsy-turvy times is blasted as transphobic and even hate speech by activists, the left media, even people like the New South Wales Treasurer, Matt Keane. Here's Zali Steggall, the Green Left Member of Parliament for the seat of Warringah, pretending she's Liberal light, saying that it's transphobic even to raise these issues.
This is just not an issue. And saying that parents will be concerned is just repeating I think a transphobia line. There is
So do you think some concern about parents is transphobic? That's not fair, is it?
No, but it is, because we are talking about a minority of the population.
Bizarrely, Liberals who should know better, or should join Labor at the very least, have joined the pylon. Here's the New South Wales Treasurer, Matt Keane, on Sydney Radio this morning.
I'm talking about the language that has been used, the overblown language, the inappropriate language, the divisive language that has been used in this debate. I don't think it has a place in Australian public life. There is plenty of room for respectful debate on these issues. You have it all the time in your program. Your listeners expect that. What they don't expect is hate-fueled speech. That's all.
All right. Well, I think people would probably argue against whether it's hate speech or not.
I'll come back to Matt Keane in a minute, a bit later with Mark Latham, but no one should be taking advice from Matt Keane about respectful conduct in and out of the Parliament. Now, to his credit, the Prime Minister's standing by his captain's pick. So too is the New South Wales Premier, Dominic Perrottet. But this isn't just a question of standing by a candidate and in the process sending a signal to people in heartland seats that you're on their side. It's a question of actually making a difference and stopping woke sports bodies taking away the rights of women and girls to fair competition, and standing up for the fact that men and women are biologically different, that it isn't wrong to admit that, and that you just can't become a female simply by announcing it. I certainly accept that there are people who feel trapped in the wrong body, and I admire the courage and authenticity of those like my friend Kate McGregor, who went through a lengthy process of transition. People like Kate deserve support, and from day one, without a second thought, I gave it to her. But the numbers we're talking about here are very, very small. Indeed, in the most recent census data put out by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, The number of Australians who identified as transgender was 1,260 people. 1,260 people out of a population of 25 million. The ABS says data collection here is hard, but it is what people self-reported, and therefore it's all we have to go on until we get new census data down the track. But the experience of people like Kate is very different from encouraging gender fluidity, insisting that gender is all a social construct, and even criminalising, as they've done in Victoria, any attempt to encourage uncertain and maybe confused teenagers to wait a while before embarking on irreversible change. In the end, this election shouldn't be about who can strike the most responsive chords with the public. It should be about who's going to make change for the better. Draft education guidelines from the NT reported today where teachers are told not to refer to boys and girls lest they trigger children who don't identify that way, show how political correctness can often end up undermining our sense of self. 2 months ago, Scott Morrison said that he supported a Tasmanian Liberal senator's private members bill to protect women's sporting groups that stopped unfair competition from biological men. Senator Claire Chandler's bill was terrific, he said, and he was encouraging her. Now the Prime Minister says that it's not government policy and that there should be a conscience vote. But if he wants to be a Prime Minister who delivers and who's not just in Labor's jibe, Scotty from marketing, well, he should think again. Some Liberals say this conscience vote's got to happen if the bill even progresses, but they misunderstand Liberal Party history. Conscience votes are only for matters of life and death. This is instead a matter of biology and fairness. And protecting women and girls should be a fundamental policy position for all Liberals. For a coalition that's struggling to lift its primary vote because its natural supporters are wondering what on earth it actually stands for, this issue, Prime Minister, it's a no-brainer. And today, finally, you gave me some hope when you said this.
I think Australians are getting pretty fed up with having to walk on eggshells every day because they may or may not say something one day that's going to upset someone. Now, you shouldn't seek to upset anyone else. You shouldn't seek to upset people. You should deal with things in a very sensitive way. But in this country, I think it's time to allow people, where they have made mistakes in the past about how they have said things in the past, where they're prepared to put those behind them and focus sensitively on the issues they're seeking to promote, then that's how they do it. Others might want to cancel her. Others might want to cancel other Australians for standing up for things that they believe in, but I'm not going to have a partnership with them.
More of this, and you might just not be behind.